Will Crabtree here with Gorilla Gurus for the Gorilla Gurus Marketing Happy Hour. Today's episode is remarketing, recycling, and revivals. My co-host today is Mike Paskas, and our guest today is Tony with eSmart Recycling. Tony, how you doing today?
Pretty awesome, Will. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming out. How about yourself, Mr. Paskas? Not Paskas.
Yeah, that's an important distinction. Great as always. Ready to talk and drink. I mean, those are the two things that's what I do.
Talk and drink. So today's cocktail is a revival. Now, I've seen a couple different recipes, and there's a cocktail at Ella's Folk Art Cafe here in Tampa that I'm a big fan of. It's like a whiskey Tom Collins. So I'm kind of taking what I was able to find from the ingredients on their cocktail and combined it with the recipes that I was able to find, and I'm just going to kind of wing it. So we'll see how this goes. We're going to do some Basil Hayden bourbon, some sweet tea with some lemon and some mint.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the cocktail.
I don't know if I've ever heard you order an old fashioned without asking for that first.
Yeah. Basil Hayden is my is definitely my go-to bourbon. I like it a lot. It is smooth, and I don't get hungover off of it.
I don't think I've ever had that one.
It's good stuff. Good
Okay.
stuff. So Tony, your business fascinates me. It's a great story. What you do, it's incredible. So tell us a little bit about eSmart Recycling and what you guys do.
For sure. So everyone has old computers, technology that they have no idea what to do with. And we recycle that. We take care of all of that. And we use a portion of the proceeds of all the money that we're able to make, and we give computers to kids and families in the community who don't have access to technology. So if you think it's a problem for you, because I'm assuming that you have an old phone or tablet or...
I think we all do. I may have 7. I think at one time, I'm not even kidding, I had 3 laptops just sitting in the closet, and the only thing I knew to do was take out the hard drive.
Hoard them, yeah.
Right? And then just, maybe I'm a dad. I save screws, I save twist ties, and I save computers. You never know when you might need them again.
Yeah.
So if you have that problem, you can imagine that the bigger the company, the bigger the problem.
Sure.
So they go through refresh periods every 3 to 5 years. And we can use all of that equipment just by becoming their vendor. And we've created our own internal software and algorithm that helps us measure what we call the social impact of each pickup that we do. And then we use a portion of that, and then we just support the community, man. The digital divide and access to technology right here in our own backyard is huge. So if you imagine that challenge that we are having as the best country in the world, go to Latin America, go to developing countries, it's even greater. So, yeah.
So there's kind of 2 different levels or 2 different tiers, and actually I remember when we spoke, there's several different tiers when we're talking about the type of technology and what you do with those technologies.
Yeah.
So I know when you came here, because as soon as we met, I'm like, dude, I got a whole closet full of stuff for you. So, we had some computers that were probably 10 years old, and some that were probably 3 or 4 years old.
Right.
So as you get different things, I'm sure there's different levels of quality and what can be used. How do you kind of decipher that, and what do you do with the different types of stuff?
Sure. No, that's a very valid question. But at the end of the day, I come from scrap metal, right? That's my background. So one of the first things that you learn in scrap metal is that if you sort trash, you can sell it, right? And whatever it is that we're getting, if it's like really old technology, there's a value to it. It's just a more, commodity, recycling value, because there's not much you can do with it other than, sell it by the pound, and then someone will recover the metals, and that's
use
the value
parts, things like that.
And when the quality starts to increase, then you go to the salvaging parts component, right? And then there might be a couple of parts that you can take out. And then when you start to get newer technology, now you have complete machines that you can refurbish and resell, and that's how we make our money, just reselling as much as we can.
I would imagine there's also certain parts of technology in the computers that grow fast, like the technology itself grows faster than others. So you may have a screen that you can reuse, but maybe the motherboard or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? where you can refurbish this, and then the rest of the computer, or the rest of that piece of technology, whatever, gets recycled or what have you.
That's exactly how it goes.
Okay.
And then what we do in our warehouse is that we sort of train our team, right, to spot value and to recognize value. And we have like, if you look at it from a production line, we have filters, right? So the first filter is the easiest one. Then the second filter is our test bench technicians, and then our third filter is the one that grades the material and assigns a value. And then by the time it's done, we've already know if we are maximizing the value of that particular product.
So then you're the things that you're recycling, you're working with specific organizations as far as where that recycling's going, where you're selling that scrap metal to somewhere else, and then on the other side, I'm assuming that you're taking the refurbished materials, and then that's where you're reaching out to people that could use them, right?
Yeah, about 20% of the money that we generate is what we end up deploying back to the community. And the other 80% is what we keep, obviously, to make money and grow our business, because we're a for-profit, which is, we're a social enterprise, we're a mission-driven company. And we have the kind of the three tiers of us for making money is scrap, which is like the lowest, then wholesale, which is our IT companies or our exporters, and then retail, which is the higher end type of stuff, like the newer type of stuff.
Gotcha.
I know, it's fun, it's interesting. Yeah. It's something that you sort of like. You can't replicate this business model in too many different markets. America is prime for a business model like this.
How are you reaching out to like for the for-profit side as far as selling like these refurbished products and things like that? Are you reaching out to specific entities? Do you have a specific marketing strategy for that?
Yeah, that's very good. So we basically have to create two pipelines, right? Because most companies they know where they're getting their inventory that they're trying to resell. Mm. They know where they're getting their raw materials. So they only have to focus on the client that they're selling to. We have to create two pipelines. We have to create the pipeline of our corporate partners, which is the ones that we're going to be recycling the material from. And then once we get that and we have the material in our warehouse, well, we haven't made money yet, right? Now we have to sell it. And then that's how we have to create our second pipeline, which is the people that we have to reach out to sell that inventory to.
And of the inventory that you collect versus sell, how much do you actually donate as well?
About 20%.
About 20% gets donated.
20%, so. But it's hard to see it from a volume perspective, right? We see it more from a revenue perspective and and net proceeds perspective. So when you assign a value to each pickup, because each pickup has a value, even if it's a very little value. When you go to a company and we pick up 10 computers, well, the value for that pickup might be $300. Mm. But when we're working with a hospital and we're taking care of all their, 1,000 computers that they just upgraded, well, the value of that pickup is $100,000, right? So then based on that, that's what we put through our little formula, and then we allocate how much money we're going to deploy back into the community. And it usually tends to be around 20%. Nice. Of that pickup value.
Is there a two-way relationship with a lot of the companies that you're picking these old computers up with? Are you trying to resell back to them as well, or are they typically buying brand new things, and then that's where your relationship is primary is through the pickup or buying old technology?
Yeah. We're kind of the last leg of the equation. Is we are the ones that come in when they say, "Holy crap, we have a whole bunch of computers and we have no idea what to do with them." Gotcha. Like, yeah, you call me.
So, and the computers that you're typically selling, or the devices that you're typically selling, you're selling back into other countries outside of the United States. Right. And then the stuff that gets donated is getting donated here in communities that don't have access to technology.
I would say that about 90% of the computers that we donate, that we deploy back into the community, about 90% stay here, not only in the U.S., but within the Tampa Bay area.
Okay.
Awesome. 10% would go overseas. Like we are doing projects in Peru, for example. Last month I was in Cusco. We were setting up a computer lab there, which is like a long-term partnership. But we've deployed computers in 5 countries.
Nice.
Right? And so far we've deployed a little bit over 2,000 computers in general. But when we are reselling our inventory, because we're deploying the computers and we're not charging the nonprofits, obviously. But when we are, well, not obviously, because that's another sort of part of the business model. But when we sell our material, the way that we make money, I would say that 80% is retail, and that's through our e-commerce channels, through our own website and stuff like that. That represents probably about 70% of our revenue.
Okay.
And that goes to anyone. We have people from Ukraine that purchase, point of sale units. We have people from Canada, from Mexico. They're just like whatever they come from. And then I would say that about 20% of our revenue comes from wholesale, which are secondary markets.
Sure.
That's your buyer from the Dominican Republic or Nigeria or Dubai and things like that. And then 10% is scrap. It's like, okay, we can't do anything with this.
And now scrap, I assume there's some scrap metal value within the computers and various different things. So you're still actually, even that what is ultimately would be trash is still generating revenue for you.
That's right, baby.
That's awesome, man. Cash out of trash, man. Cash out of trash.
3 R's, right?
Cheers.
Cheers. Let me know what you guys think on this thing.
Let's see.
If it's bad, then we'll just drink some beers.
All right. Let's see.
It's not terrible, man.
It's not terrible, and it's I've had the other one from Ella's, and it's comparable.
Oh
man,
I made you ever have a Grateful Dead? You know what that is? Yeah.
Yeah, I know what Grateful Dead is. Yeah.
I try to make a mass quantity of Grateful Dead, 1.5 gallons. That's hard to do. And
a drink's called the Grateful Dead. No, I just thought you were talking about the acid band,
No, the drink. It's basically like a sweet Long Island. But anytime you start making mass quantities of stuff, try a little bit. Pour a little bit.
This is very dangerous. I'm gonna tell you that.
Oh yeah, there's quite a bit of bourbon in this cocktail.
You drink this by the pool, at the beach, on a boat, and you'll be
having a good time.
Yeah, having a good time.
Quicker than everybody else.
Exactly.
Very good. I like it. Very nice.
Well, now that we got our cocktails, let's go over to the lounge and talk about some marketing.
Yeah,
like that.
So today's topic is kind of geared around you, Tony, and what you do. I
feel special. Thank you.
The wording, it just kind of flowed off the tongue. The recycling and remarketing, and then the revivals just brought it all together. But the point of the podcast is to talk about marketing and advertising. And the real topic of today is remarketing. So there's various different ways of doing remarketing. One of my favorite digital marketing tools is retargeting. Are you familiar with retargeting at all, Tony?
A little bit, but you're the expert, so I'd like to hear a little bit more.
Well, I'd like to hear what your impression or what you think retargeting is.
It's a good start too, because everybody has kind of different ideas.
They do,
and we've discussed this a lot as far as just digital marketing terms in general. And it's always good and interesting. It helps us to hear another person's viewpoint. Like, what does that mean to you? Somebody that does not work in the field on a regular basis.
Right. Let's put the guests on the spot and shine a light on their ignorance. I'm kidding.
that's what the alcohol's for.
Right.
Loosen you up, man.
So for me, my concept of retargeting is so once you have the line of communication with your target, client, then how do you use that opportunity that you have to do something else, right? Either to provide more information, to provide vertical products, to follow up, to get more intimate once you have that communication, which is the hardest thing to get.
Okay. So you're not wrong. That is not retargeting. That would be more remarketing or just kind of staying in touch with your contacts, which we're definitely going to cover.
Yeah.
Retargeting is actually a very specific type of digital marketing. When if you notice now, when you land on websites, there's a disclaimer now that pops up that says this website uses cookies. The reason for that is it's a privacy thing. It's not mandated in the United States yet. It is mandated in yet being the key word there. It is mandated in Europe that if you use cookies, and cookies are little bots that get installed on your device when you land on a website. So when you interact with a website, it's actually installing things on your device, and that's what cookies are.
Non-invasive.
Non-invasive. Yeah. They might slow your device down if you get too many of them. If you're scared about this, you can go on your browser and you can clear your cache and clear your cookies. But the reason that you're seeing that is that it's been mandated by privacy laws in Europe that any website hosted in Europe is required to put the disclaimer that if they do have cookies, and a lot of websites in the United States are starting to adopt it preemptively before it is mandated. So retargeting is when you actually land on a website, it's installing a specific type of cookie on the device that then allows us to follow you with ads. So you land on tampaprinter.com, for example, and we install cookies on your device, and you will then start to see Tampa Printer ads on your Facebook and on CNN and TMZ and everywhere else that you're browsing online. So it's it's retargeting specifically, and it's really great for conversions because somebody lands on the website and you can determine whether they've taken an action and you no longer serve them ads or different types of ads based on actions that they have taken on the website. So if you're doing an advertisement for someone that you're trying to get to convert or become a customer, you would maybe not serve them the same ad after they've become a customer. So you can actually change the way all that interacts. But that's specifically what retargeting is.
And you need that check-in. It's something like 98% of customers will not buy the first time they go to your site.
Right.
And nowadays, I think the statistic is up. Somebody needs to see something 11 to 15 times before they pull the trigger. Now, it obviously depends on the type of product and levels and things like that, but they need to see it a few times before they actually decide to buy.
So where did you, at what point or sort of what platform do you create the workflow?
So there's a bunch of different platforms and different pieces of software that do retargeting. Google is probably the most prominent. So if you have Google Ads or Google Analytics or Google My Business, it all stems from Google Ads. But you can have and collect audiences through Google Ads, and it works right with your analytics tags and everything else. It's just audience accumulation.
Interesting.
And the pixel is pretty strong as well.
Yeah.
For social media. Like, you look up a toaster on Amazon, and I know we're going from targeting to marketing, but everybody sees it. They think that's why everybody thinks that their Alexa's, listening to them, but it's not really that. You have looked this up, but we look up so many things that you kind of forget. So it's going to keep showing you like items because, they want you to buy it. And then, the more you buy, the
it's fascinating.
it's a flow.
Yeah. It's fun stuff.
Yeah. So I always describe it as like, that creepy stuff that always happens to you. Yeah, we do that.
Yeah.
There's a book. It's one of my favorite books. It's by Richard Thaler. He won the Nobel Prize in Economics, I think, 2017. And he has this book called Nudge. And in the book, he talks about how a lot of the decisions, if not most of the decisions that we make on a daily basis, we think we are making those decisions on our own, but there's always a choice architect behind that decision. And a lot of the times it's just purely based on human nature and social studies. And it's very easy for people, if they're looking at you, if they're studying you, to guess what your next decision is going to be purely based on data that you're generating. So I've always been fascinated about, the choice architect.
Even color psychology. Look at like Coke and Kellogg's. What color they use? Red, right? Like that's a huge driver. It
is. Well, and it's interesting that you bring this up because I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and it's a rabbit hole that I kind of went down the other day.
Yeah.
But marketing and advertising really influences culture, and it influences culture now at a much faster pace and is more impactful, but does not necessarily have as much longevity as it has. So you brought up Coca-Cola. Santa Claus is a prime example.
They invented Santa
of marketing,
or the modern
Macy's
Santa.
did.
Yeah. That's right. I'm sorry.
Macy's. The iteration that we know now
Don't tell my
of Santa Claus was created by Macy's, and it was a marketing tool.
Yeah.
But it's become an embedded part of our culture. And I mean, there's tons and tons of examples of these things. But marketing then was very slow paced. There was only so many marketing channels. You had print and radio, and television wasn't really a thing at that point.
Urgency was different. There's not as much competition.
So now I think we're still influencing culture as marketers and advertisers, but it's being done at such a much faster pace and a much smaller scale, unless you're talking about like your TikToks and your Twitters and things like that. But even those become little kind of mini marketing channels?
Well, there's also, I think, a general expectation that's changed too because of the sort of connectivity that we have nowadays, the technology, the ability to connect. The consumer experience is different, right? The expectations of being able to get a hold of somebody at a company, not call an 800 number and sit on a phone for hours, but have a chat, a quick chat thing come up. Or we work with a lot of small businesses, so having the ability that for customers to either get in touch with the business owner or make it at least look like they're getting in touch with the business owner through our help, it's a huge driver, and it makes a business stand out.
But I mean, the other part of the topic at hand is remarketing, right? So I didn't want to use retargeting. I use remarketing, which is much more blanket thing. So retargeting is a great way to remarket. It's a way to improve conversion. So as people are landing on your website and they're clicking off and then they continue to see your ads, they come back. At least some of them do, right? Yeah. But to your point, and what you thought retargeting was, which is really remarketing, is how do you maintain those relationships with your customers and your contacts, and how do you continue to touch them? And I'm curious for you, because I know you have multiple channels. You have your corporate channels that you get your donations from. You have your overseas channels where you're selling, you have your e-commerce. So you have a lot of different things and a lot of different touch points. What are you doing to stay in contact with all of these different channels?
It's one of those things that when your business starts to grow, and I've always looked, I'm a huge fan of scalability.
Mm-hmm.
So every time we're trying to do something at the warehouse, whether it's at an operational level or a marketing level, we always try to make sure the strategy is scalable, even if we start very, very small. And when we start looking at our digital presence and our email marketing campaigns and how we leverage, our digital presence, whether it is to get more clients or to sustain the relationship that we have with them, it's been a huge learning curve, obviously, particularly me, because I like to be involved in at least the knowledge component. But it's something that once you start getting into it, you realize that, wow, this is overwhelmingly huge, right? And for us, a lot of people, and especially, I look at it in my business model, but I think it's true with any type of business that is buying and reselling. A lot of people pay close attention to the sale, right? When in reality, the part that makes you money is the purchase.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get a good deal in the purchase, the sale is like the easiest thing in the world. And for us, I believe that, because when we're getting our inventory, getting it to the warehouse is the biggest challenge. Once we get it in the warehouse, selling it, it's not really that hard. But where we do need to become very, very efficient is in how do we get more corporate partners, more clients.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like to use the word clients, but more partners, right? And we call it partners because we have a powerful story that we want to get across.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that we go and we collect their equipment and we become their vendor, like, we want to share that story. We want them to be proud of working with us.
You're creating a relationship as well.
Right.
And
they become cheerleaders for you as well. And then
100%.
they're doing your marketing and your referrals for you.
Exactly.
Right. There it is. Right.
So, and we have a very, very strong competitive advantage, which is our story. And people can replicate it, but you can tell. I mean, you're in marketing. You know exactly when someone's faking the story for the sake of faking it or greenwashing their image, and you know when someone really, really cares.
And so can most people, by the way.
Yeah.
You find that nowadays. There's so much stuff out there that they can just tell if you're full of shit or if you genuinely care about what you're doing.
Right.
100%. So that's been one of our biggest, I wouldn't say challenges, but focus is how do we tell our story in a way where they understand that we are a big company, a reputable company. Maybe we're not huge, but we want to become big. Like, I didn't build this company to have a lifestyle company. I want us to serve Fortune 1000 companies, right? And they see that we're professional, that we can take care of all of their sensitive material, and that we also are very committed to the community. And I noticed that a lot of people were perceiving us as a nonprofit.
And I originally thought you were a nonprofit as well.
It's very common.
Yeah.
And I don't, nothing against that, right? But I want them to see this is a great company with a very strong social mission.
Well, and you know what's interesting is I think, and I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole, but I think a lot of people are starting to understand the line between a nonprofit and a for-profit organization. I mean, really, the only difference between a nonprofit and a for-profit organization is the percentage that you actually show in profit and the structure of the organization. So, you know, the Heart Institute of America, the CEO makes, you know, $250,000 a year, you know, and I'm just pulling random numbers out of my ass.
Yeah.
But
Goodwill CEO makes like $3 million.
Exactly. So
it's important to make that difference. And like, you hit on actually two parts of the same thing, and it kind of goes a little bit away from remarketing. I apologize, but the trust factor, right, is defining who you are. So you're not trying to show or pretend that you're a nonprofit to pulling heartstrings or anything like that, but also you're showing that, hey, yeah, we're a for-profit company, but we're also doing awesome stuff with our proceeds. And then the other side of things, one thing you kind of hit on is the trust from your corporate partners, because you are taking in sensitive material too, right? And so with these computers that you have are hard drives, and on hard drives there's information, right? So a lot of people either don't know or don't think, whatever the case is, and to have that trust, I'm going to hand this over to you that may contain sensitive material, and you're going to dispose of it, or you're going to take care of it in the right manner. I think that's a huge thing that is easily glossed over. But
yeah, and again, another rabbit hole here, another tangent. How do you handle that? What do you do with the, you know, you took all of my computers, you know, what was the process?
Speaking of which, yeah, actually,
we talked about it beforehand. You're like, no, we wipe them. I'm like, okay, that was good enough for me, you know?
Right. Well, and that's the thing. The thing is, how do we convey that story, right? So from an operational standpoint, each pickup generates 3 main documents, right? One document is a certificate of data destruction. One document is the audit report, which you see make, model, serial numbers of everything that was picked up. And then the other document is your environmental footprint and your social footprint, right? Which means the environmental footprint is, hey, we collected 127 pounds of electronics. Statistically, 80% of those would have ended up in the landfill. Now they're not. And it helped empower, you know, one kid or one family. So telling that story. And that's where we keep getting better and better in how do we tell that story. Right?
Well, and it's almost a dialogue, right? So when you're communicating with your partners and stating that, hey, we took these from you, it had this positive impact. It also saved you the trouble of having to mess with this, right? So you know, and you can feel secure in that we took your devices, no sensitive material is going to get out, and then you also made a positive impact.
Yeah.
So being a for-profit organization and not toting that you're a nonprofit, or even, you know, in not allowing for anyone to misconstrue you as being a nonprofit organization. And again, I don't really think there's that much difference between a for-profit or a nonprofit organization.
Because you have business knowledge. Not many consumers have that. And you hear nonprofit, you're like, oh man, let me send my money to them because it's nonprofit, right? They don't understand business structure, things like that, which is a huge.
But I think we're going through a major paradigm shift, in my opinion. Especially,
I like paradigm shifts.
Well, yeah, you see it, especially when you see the next generation take over, right? We value all of those intangibles a lot more because we're a more educated generation, and it's always going to happen. Like, I'm a millennial, and then you have Gen Zs, and we've lived our lives through major periods of prosperity. Mm-hmm. And obviously we're more educated than our parents were more educated than our grandparents were. So we start to value those intangibles a lot better. And when we start getting into positions of leadership, obviously those intrinsic values that you have, you pour them into your team, you pour them into your company. And for me, that's one of the biggest competitive advantages that we have right now as business leaders and as business owners and entrepreneurs, is how do we identify those social problems that our community is facing align those problems with our business proposition and get more involved in the solution.
Right.
Start taking that burden from, is the government's responsibility to solve this problem for us.
The government isn't going to solve it.
And that's the thing. What are we doing?
100%. Like, yeah, I love that you brought that up. Like, stop. Let's just, there's so much that we are able to do that oftentimes that's the mentality is, well, the government should take care of this or this. And no, we can do it. Let's just do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's there. Like, and then the more people that do that, the less I think, and also the more people that are educated in one's ability to help in various ways, the less that we have to rely on. And hopefully, without getting into a bunch of other crap.
Well, and I think that the paradigm shift, it's happening because we're stopping to see that from an altruistic view. It used to be very altruistic. It used to be, I'm going to help because it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to help because I've accumulated wealth. I'm going to help because this community has been great to me and it's my moral duty of giving back. No, I'm going to help because it's in my own self-interest to see my community rise, because then I'm going to be doing well as a result of.
And that's
Right.
okay.
That's
And that's
perfectly
okay.
fine.
You know what I
That's
mean?
the way it
And
should be.
It's okay.
That's the way it should be.
That the whole thing is like, I don't care why you're helping, even if it's just for pure self-interest, you're still helping.
Right.
So who gives a shit like why or where it's coming from? It's what you're doing.
Yeah.
I just love that you hit that on the head like that. That's
Yeah. So,
people are shy to say that, I think, sometimes too.
I think
They're very shy.
Yeah, I think there's a stigma around that. I think there's a stigma about making money and trying to do good.
Well, I think you're right. Well, and it's funny. It's a weird social construct in that everybody wants to make money, right? Everybody wants to be better off. And there's this thing that we do as a society. We compare ourselves to other people, both up and down, right? So, again, total tangent and left field, but something that I realized not too long ago was, being grateful and living in gratitude is something that creates prosperity, right?
100%.
But when you're saying, well, at least I'm not X, right? So you're looking at either someone specific or a group or whatever, and you're comparing yourself to that and being grateful because you're better off than that isn't being grateful.
Right.
You're still degrading or comparing.
Right.
And then when you're looking at, oh, I want to be like that, or I want those things as goals, it's not really a goal.
Yeah.
It's envy, right? So things are falling out of my pocket here. But yeah, no, so the way that you structure your own outlook on certain things determines what you actually, how you actually interact with the world.
And how you accomplish things too. Like,
right.
So last month I'm in Cusco, right? And we're setting up this computer lab that I was telling you about a little bit ago. And we go into this community, beautiful community. Añañao is the name of the nonprofit. It's an NGO up there. And we're interacting with the kids. And we talk to them. It's like, what do you want to do? And there was this kid that wanted to be in computer science, right? And then we're talking to this other girl. It's like, what do computers mean to you? Because they didn't have computers. Like, we brought, some laptops and they didn't have them. And it's like, well, it gives us an opportunity to keep working hard and, fighting for our dreams. And I have a video I'll share with you because it's coming in our newsletter this month. And it was such an eye-opening experience for me. It's always emotional. Like when we're deploying computers, it always gets emotional. This one in particular was very emotional because of the circumstances in which these kids were brought up. But you're looking at what they want to accomplish and their dreams and what makes them feel valued and unique. And it's the exact same thing that we want in this privileged environment that we have been brought up in. And at the end of the day, we all want the exact same thing.
Absolutely.
We just happen to have a couple more tools. I mean, so Afghanistan with the kids, like their access to technology and stuff like that, they know about all this stuff, but they don't have as much access, right? And what I find, we've gone on, I don't know, 3 or 4 different tangents, but I see it kind of actually full circle is how do we now convey that thought or convey that story to people and keep that top of mind awareness? So we do it through obviously marketing and media and things like that, but at the same time, it's anybody that has shown interest to keep showing them these things that they've already now shown interest in. So now you're not just targeting everyone, you're actually targeting a specific demographic that has shown interest in your product or service, and that's remarketing. There you go. Full circle, my friends.
It was planned.
there it
It was
is.
planned from the beginning.
It was.
Gears are turning, baby.
But no, it's I think there's a thing that I think all humans do it, and we're probably more guilty of it in the United States than other places, is that you kind of get in this bubble where you don't realize what the rest of the world looks like, right? When even in the United States, the class divide is vast, right? So yes, we do have a lot of opportunity in the United States, but not everybody has the same opportunity in the United States. We all strive, we all want the same things, right? But the issue is it's easy to view things from a standpoint of, and forget the humanity behind it, right? So like just the border stuff that's been going on, right? Like, oh, well, we don't want those people in our country, or, cut the borders off. Well, no, they're just trying to get to a place so they can have the same opportunity that you have. Like, what is the point? Why? They're not taking anything from you, right? Like,
yeah. Or even better, you'll hear, no, I agree. They need somewhere to go, just not here.
Right.
Like, okay, so
You're getting a very hot topic right now.
we're getting political over here.
I was like, yeah, okay, all right.
This is an apolitical podcast, but no. I mean, I'm a firm believer in the old John Lennon song, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
So,
It's Yellow Submarine.
huh? Yeah, Yellow Submarine. That's the one. That's the one. But no. So remarketing, retargeting. What do you? We kind of, again, we went down some tangents, but the question at hand was, so what do you do to stay in touch with all of these different channels?
Right.
I know it's
There's a lot of them. It seems like, yeah.
Yeah.
And in completely different industries.
Well, it is, but not really, because what we're trying to do is align them all together, right? So, for example, we started integrating the CRM solution, and the CRM solution links directly with our social media platforms, and we have a content curator that is working based on specific topics. And then we have an SEO specialist that's making sure that, the right keywords are included in the right, fashion within the blog. So depending on how our sales team vets the prospect, we assign them colors. So, purple means that, so we have, when we put them on our CRM, there's 8 touch points that happen, semi-automatic.
And to clarify for those of you that don't know what CRM is, it's customer relation manager. That's what
Right.
CRM is. And there's a bunch of different softwares that do it.
Very good, exactly. So we've created a workflow that semi-automates the process. And then we have 4 different color coding, right? So like purple means that they never answer to any of them. Yellow means that they answer, they want some information. Green means that they're good to go. And red means that they don't want to be bothered, which rarely happens. Because like if we reach out to you and we're like, hey, we're trying to get computers for kids and families, can you talk for 5 minutes? And they said no. I mean, they're a dick. So we're fine with not talking to you.
This person hates kids.
I know. Like, okay, well, sure, you kid hater. Anyway, so depending on the color coding, certain things, we created the workflow to, certain things happen in the background. And it ultimately goes with, we'll send you, communication, right? And then we'll measure whether you're opening the communication that we're sending you or not, or whether you're staying in touch. But a very interesting thing that happens in our industry is that we'll send an email and then we won't hear back from them in like 8 or 10 months because they might have gotten through a refresh And then when they have more computers, they're like, yes, we have these guys that keep sending us emails and they're doing cool things. So they reach out to us. And it's a long process, but we've been accruing information and data on our, so now right now we have like 12,000 people just on Tampa, Orlando, and Jacksonville, which are the 3 areas that we're primarily focusing on right now.
And those are all potential prospects and partners,
Right.
People that you
corporate partners.
that you
Absolutely.
would acquire the recyclable devices.
Well,
Exactly.
so going before that though, that's you're, at that point you've acquired their information, right? You've acquired their email, acquired their name.
We know that they're opening,
Right. So prior to that though, like so a lot of times when we're working with remarketing or something like that, it's getting the customer, that person that we want to get in touch with, to get over that hump, to give us their information. So
Right.
what are you doing in that side of things where they know who you are,
right?
And now you're asking them to take this action and give us your information so we can get in touch or something like that.
Right.
What is your process there?
We do a lot of data mining. We do a lot of manual data mining. The first thing that we do is we identify the what we believe is the right type of company. And we do that through databases, through lists, through, Florida Trend or the Business Journal. I've trained the team in what to be on the lookout for, right? And then once they find the company, they do some research on the company, whether it's through their website, whether it's through LinkedIn, and then they try to find the right person within the company. And because most of the companies that we want to work with are medium or large size companies, it becomes a little easier to try to find people within the company, because when you go to their LinkedIn page, it's like 55,000 employees. They're like, okay, I'm about to get one, right? And then once we identify, a handful of potential people within that company, that's where we put them in the CRM and the entire process sort of
So
starts.
you're ultimately you're cold calling. So you're harvesting and mining data based on demographics that you've identified.
Yep.
Is the initial contact with a phone call? Is it an initial contact through an email?
The initial contact is via email.
It's via email.
Yes.
So when you also mentioned LinkedIn, if you find them on LinkedIn, are you still emailing them or are you contacting them through LinkedIn?
I've never really contacted them through LinkedIn.
I wouldn't suggest it unless you get a bot to do it for you. But I think they just changed their algorithm. It's not an algorithm, but something in their system.
I'm happy they did, because I
identified.
Identified
the bots.
We get stuff all.
I stopped even looking at LinkedIn. Just
hey, you want some leads?
Yeah, because I get so much.
No. Yeah.
Ugh. But I mean, email is probably your best.
But then
bet.
once we get
emails.
and once we have the person's name and the company, we go to a solution that help. If in the research process we didn't find their email address, then we're subscribed to a solution that helps us get their email, and then we send it, and then we know if they open it or not.
I can help you with some lists if you're interested.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, because my guys are. Well, obviously, once you've pounded that area for a few months,
right,
it becomes harder and harder to get the companies, right?
Right.
So yeah,
I show up at front doors. You know that, Will.
Yeah,
Probably have
this
no
guy,
problem
he
with
doesn't
that.
care.
No shame.
No shame.
But it comes in the way that I create the process. If you remember when we started talking, it was about scalability, right? It was how, even if my numbers are not as great, but how can I put this in an automated process where if it works, whatever the numbers, because it's always a numbers game, 1 out of 100, 1 out of 1,000, 1 out of 5,000. What's the true number? Then we can scale it, right? We'll just look at every single metro area in the country, and then we'll just start doing the exact same thing that we did for Orlando and Jacksonville, and then we're gonna do Miami area, and then after that, okay, so what's the next state?
You're creating
Georgia?
metrics,
Right.
litmus, basically. In different areas. Yeah.
Exactly.
Are there other organizations that do something similar?
Similar, yes, with the same ethos and the way that we're looking at scaling our business.
Gotcha.
No one is doing it.
It's a good answer because people ask me all the time. It's like, well, give me an example of like who's one of your competitors? And I go, we don't have any. I mean, we just don't. Like, there's no competition here. Like, sure, people do sort of the same thing, but not do it our way, which just happens to be the best way.
But the thing is that you like you know it, right? And someone else that doesn't know your industry and doesn't know the nuances on how you do it, for them, like, yes, of course, there's so and so does the exact same thing. You're like, not really.
Well, that's how you that's where you define your approach, right? And you define how you go about doing things, and again, your business structure, your business model, and your communication structure, and what we do is very education forward, things like that. You know what I mean? Like doing whatever you can to create an actual conversation, and not just like, hey, you should buy my stuff.
Right. No, but I love your industry, and I love your business because it allows you the opportunity of scale relatively fast without having to increase your operating costs.
Mm-hmm. Right. And control scale.
Yeah. Our case is like the law of diminishing returns hits us in the face like a brick.
I bet.
Because you get a bigger client, you need a bigger warehouse, you need more trucks, you need more
bodies,
people,
yeah.
And that is not the easiest thing to find nowadays.
No, it's not. It's not.
Yeah, it's a turnoff. You wanna buy a recycling business?
Well, one major point that I want to make, and you mentioned something about this at the beginning about, people have to see you like 11 times now, right? Like,
sure.
In marketing just a decade ago, it was the power of 3. Mm-hmm. That was what we said. Somebody's got to see you 3 times. Well, now it's gotten to 10 to 12 times. Someone has to see you before it resonates with you. Again, because we're just fed information constantly, right? So remarketing is important in that someone goes to your website and they fill out a contact form, or you've harvested their data and you've called them, or they've sent you an email, or you've sent them an email and they've responded, or whatever this is. It's all touch points, right? But you're still only talking about 1 to maybe 2 touch points in what we're talking about here. And maybe even someone did purchase from you. They did do 1 transaction. You've closed a sale. But the amount of times that you continue to interact with any given customer, regardless of how big or how small they could be or how big they are, it's important because it creates the reorder. So whether you've closed the sale or not, you've got to continue to touch them. If you've closed the sale, you've got to continue to touch them so that you can get retention. So marketing is a constant thing on both the front end and on the residual, or I hate saying back end, but on the back end of it, where you have to continue to stay in contact with your customer, whether you're doing that with a newsletter, you're doing that with a blog, you're posting video content on YouTube, you're interacting your YouTube with your newsletter, which I've seen you've been featured in a couple different online video media type things where you've gotten some news coverage, right?
Yeah.
And then you're including that in your newsletter, which is great.
Yeah.
But the point is you got to have content, because if you're just sending people the same shit all the time, then they're going to get bored and they're not going to pay attention to you. So you have to come up with new content, and you have to constantly stay in front of both potential new customers and existing customers.
And nowadays too, because there is so much information coming at us, there's a finesse about it, right? You don't want to piss somebody off. We all got the Best Buy, we used to get Best Buy things in the mail every week, and you just got to a point you're throwing this shit out because it's the same stuff, right? It's regurgitated material. So you're not only having to stay in contact, but you're staying in contact without annoying people, right? So there's a credibility build and there's an engagement build, right? And again, it's not just showing you stuff; it is engaging with you. It is showing you personalized things. Email blasts now on a general basis, they don't work. There's what I think is like 30 to 35% greater chance of an email being opened if it's at least personalized. Hey Jim, not hey dear customer. You know what I mean?
Right.
And there's also that expectation.
Yeah.
Again, you have to engage on a personal level with your audience.
Well, and what we were talking a little bit ago is that once you, and I'm a huge proponent that every single company should do it, because they can do it at some extent. It's easier for us to say based on the industry that we're in. It kind of became very natural for us. But once you align what it is that you stand for, what your company stands for, and you align it with an issue that you're passionate about in the community, that relevance component becomes so much easier to share. Mm-hmm. Once you're constantly doing things in the community, once you're constantly, reaching out to organizations, doing people and that goodwill, that planting the seeds.
You've written a story. All you're doing now is just telling the story to different people, right?
Exactly.
And until you have a new story to tell, it's a good story.
Right.
It's all about the story.
All about the story.
And you have a great story.
I appreciate that.
You have a great story.
Thank you.
The business is great. The idea, the concept, what you do for the community, all the way around, man. It's a great business. Like I said, I've been intrigued by it, and I'm excited by it. I've got ideas for you.
I know.
I'll just sit down and talk to you about some of that stuff someday. But do either of you guys have any other points specific to remarketing?
No, I think the big thing here too is like, because we're hitting on remarketing and recycling and things like that, and you hear a lot now in Hollywood, whatever the case is there's no new stuff, right? Everything's just recycled material. But just because something is recycled doesn't mean it's bad, right? Like just like content and SEO now, we don't need new content. We don't need new blogs. We just need updated material because things are ever changing.
Yeah.
Right. We just need to update what we have or bring about new ways of getting that message across, whatever the case is. And what you guys are doing, I think, is incredible, both on, the business structure, business model, and helping the community. And that's also, I think, is going to be a huge thing now that I think it's going to become even almost an expectation that, okay, great, I'm happy for your success, but what else? What are you giving back? What are you doing? Right.
Yeah.
And that really sets you apart.
Yeah. Obviously, I 100% agree with you. And one of the things is that I don't think a lot of people realize that, but we are very intentional in the way that we're doing it. Is that the better the profile of your client is, and the more data you have from your client, the biggest opportunity you have to vertically integrate your company with something else.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's one of the things that we're doing. One of the things that I don't like about my industry is that I've always felt like we're sort of a one-hit wonder, right? We identify the company, because of the story, we have a great relationship with them. But if they've already went through a refresh period and they've swapped 2,000 computers, it's going to take 3 years for them to go through the same issue again. So
well, it depends. If you're talking about an organization with 55,000 employees, right, then the turnover is going to be a lot faster because those...
It is, yeah, but still, I always feel like now that I have you, now that you love my story, now that I've worked so hard to develop a relationship with you, what more can I get out of you, right? And then we've been very actively looking at what other industries, what other companies can vertically integrate with us, whether it's a paper shredding business,
mm-hmm.
Like what else is out there that we're sort of talking to the exact same people, to the exact same contacts, that we can align with our story. And if we have a good knowledge of, one, our customer base, and two, the acquisition process for that customer base, then it's like killing two birds in one stone.
Comes on, again, back to that top of mind awareness. Yeah. Keeping in touch and all that stuff.
Right.
And
so you might as well do it for two damn things, right? Or 3 or 4 or 5 or, however you want.
Just have a printing company and start a marketing agency.
Yeah, exactly. That, that would be, yeah.
There you go.
And just, you're doing well. It's okay to make money, and it's okay to say you're making money, right? Yeah. Like that is such a, I think, big thing to take away too, is like, and it's okay to be like, hey, yeah, hell yeah, we're doing this. And the more money you make, the more you can give back. Right. So, man.
Yeah.
Just, balance.
Preaching.
Hey.
Preach, brother. Preach.
Hey.
Well, Tony, it's been great having you on the podcast. I want to tell people how they can get in touch with you and how they can work with eSmart Recycling. What's the best way for our audience to reach you?
Super easy. We are at eSmart Recycling everywhere in social media. And if you go to our website, it's www.e as in echo, smart as in being smart, recycling.com. And you'll be able to see everything that we are about, all of our, industry standard services and certifications, and just reach out. We want to hear about you. Even if you're curious about the business model, I love talking about it. Even if you're a nonprofit who really needs IT, computers, devices, we still want to talk to you because, the more the more involved we are with the community, the better it is for the sake of our partners. Because our partners, our corporate partners are reaching out to us and they're asking us, how can we get involved? So, we tell them, well, because we did this pickup with you, now you have, 20 computers that we can deploy, and these are the organizations that we're working with. Who do you want to work with? And, it makes a very interesting full circle story.
I dig it. So eSmartRecycling.com. If you've got a bunch of computers or old technology or devices that are just laying around, get in touch with Tony and he'll take them off your hands.
Or if you're a nonprofit and you need some.
Or if you're a nonprofit and you need some tech.
There it is.
Reach out to Tony.
There you go.
Well, thank you guys again for joining me on the Marketing Happy Hour today, and we'll see everybody next time.
Thank you so much.